Hey everyone, I'm going to try to record this through OBS rather than QuickTime. There's been an update and apparently the record quality settings are better, so I'm giving it a try. Hi, so I posted a couple of videos to Patreon of stuff I'm working on with this. Unplug it. And I thought I'd just show it a bit clearer because they weren't great videos. I've been trying to come up with a whole bunch of just examples of things that you can do with this that kind of showcase all of its functionality, not trying to make it do something that is not designed to do, but like it's got an IMU in here and it's got sound and it's got touch and it's got RGB. So what things can you do with those? And so one of the things I've been playing with is just audio. This is just a nothing thing, but it's basically, depending on where you touch, it's a bit soft at the moment. Hopefully you can hear it. Maybe I'll turn the volume up. Let me turn the volume up. I'm going to have to reflash it to do that just for the moment. Sorry. Because I'm still struggling with how to put an interface on it. Volume, let's set it to full. Okay, restarting it or reflashing it. While waiting for that, I released a video about my OMG S3 board. I mean, it is tiny. Like, here it is compared to an S3, a tiny S3. See if I can hold them both at the same time. Don't know if I can. As a comparison, there we go. So, I mean, really, hey, it's a super tiny board. What are people going to do with it? I don't know. I mean, it is smaller than... Do I have a Nano S3? I've got a tiny Pico Nano. So there's a tiny Pico Nano. So, I mean, it doesn't look that much smaller, but it's quite a bit smaller. So the Nano S3 and the tiny Pico Nano are exactly the same size. So, I mean, the big antenna kind of makes it look a bit funky, but anyway, video got no traction. Actually looking at the data, the analytics, which finally filtered through now, drop off of 30% in viewing after the first 4 seconds. So as soon as the oh my god bit at the start went away and it went to the I'm going to be putting solder paste on a board, 25% or 30% of the people stopped the video. It wasn't great. And then by the what is that, the 10-second mark, 10 or 15-second mark, like another 15%, like, dropped off. And most people accelerated to the end. So it was a shit video, unfortunately. Oh well, what are you going to do? Let's quickly get back to this. Oh, I can unplug it. So, okay, nice and loud now. And this is just a nothing demo, but basically different frequencies. My kids just like doing this with it. I mean, it shows that you could do something musically with it. Like if each of the, if I program different, actual notes, and put together some type of display that looked like it was a mock piano keys type thing, then technically people could play tunes on it. I don't know. Anyway, that just shows that you got touch and sound together, and then I got some Magic Sand happening, which I got that done on the weekend, which is pretty cool. Not a lot of sand on there. Obviously, you can shake it around and it'll mess it up. But then I added the ability to hold it that way, so that if you touch, it'll attract to your. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. If you touch, it'll attract to your finger. So it's got both the Magic Sand and then the interactive. You can kind of move your finger around and it'll just follow the finger. Very hard to show in front of a camera. But it's kind of fun. Again, Yaz had fun playing with that. It's kind of cool. There's no sound on that mode at the moment. It's just showing different things you can do with it. I still don't know what I'm going to do with it. So interestingly, I've got the boards here ready to manufacture them. And yesterday I came up with a way, and I'm pissed off at myself that I didn't think of this earlier. But I'm not sure that it's something I should be doing anyway, or I'm going to do anyway. Is that I worked out. So one of the things that I don't like about this is it's just not very high res, right? It's 12 by 12, which is kind of fun, but it doesn't really give you a lot when it comes to things like displaying text and stuff, right? I can get 3 characters on the screen at once. Not very intuitive for making a menu, for instance. If you want to change the volume and you want to show a volume, and some numbers, it's really hard, right? 3 letters across and 2 rows of text is all I can fit on that. It would have been nice to get a higher fidelity display, as in more pixels, but my limitation is right now it's mapped 1 LED for every X and Y on the touch coordinate, right? So if I touch that particular pixel, then that's what shows up, and it knows that. But I came up with a way yesterday, and I validated that it works, where I can do... It's actually a funny story how it happened. I'll tell you. How I can do sub-touch. So I can detect when I'm touching a column, but I can also detect when I'm touching 2 columns. So if my finger's in between 2 columns. So if I can detect that I'm touching 2 columns, I can discard the first column touch and the last column touch, and then say I'm touching one in between. And so I could technically have 12 columns, but 20 or 23 LEDs, 23 positions. So 23 LEDs, and if I'm touching between 2 columns, if I'm touching 2 columns at the same time, then I select the LED in the middle, not the ones on each side. That gives me almost twice the resolution with the same amount of touch, which is pretty awesome. Again, okay, so how it happened was I was, as I do, in the shower, thinking in the shower, and I was going through a conversation I had in my head with a mate of mine, Lockie, who was, when I was designing this, he was also designing touch into one of his music products. He makes music products, and he just wanted to do, so on one of his things, he wanted to have the whole interface was a touch interface, but one of them was a slider, and he wanted people to be able to, move their finger up and down this slider to adjust a setting, but it needed really high fidelity. He needed 128 steps or something on this thing, and it's not a very long slider. So we were talking about different chips and different possibilities and stuff, and he ended up going with a chip that is designed to work off like a touchpad. So you don't get what column you're on. You get a pixel relationship back. So he gets 1280 by whatever resolution on his touch, which is incredibly overkill, and he knows that. One of the things that I was discussing with him at the time, like when I said to him, why don't you use a chip like I'm using here, you got 12 sections. He goes, 12 isn't enough. And I said to him at the time, yeah, but you could do sub, like you could detect if you're in between, and that could give you 23 sections, on this slider. Do you really need more than 23 steps? And he said he did, so he discarded it. So anyway, I was going through this whole conversation in my head in the shower because I was trying to work out, I found a chip that I could use that I'd have to redesign the whole front and back, where I could also do like a touch interface. So rather than going, I'm touching this LED, this touchpad or this touchpad, I could put my finger here and it could be 00, and I could put my finger there and it could be 480 by 320, right? And then anywhere in between would give you a pixel in between. The problem with the chip is they're a discontinued chip by Microchip. They're not overly expensive. I've got some in my shopping cart at the moment. I'm thinking of buying some anyway to try it. But I'm not going to be able to get any guidance on the layout. And the layout of doing this thing expects a non-interrupted, like a touchpad, where I'm going to have lots of holes throughout the whole thing. And the the type of layout that this thing needs to work on a PCB doesn't line up with where my LEDs are, right? My LEDs need to be laid out, the same proportionally. And so there are places where an LED could be really hampering the connection between the things, right? But that all aside, there's no driver for it. It's a very complex I2C thing. I've looked at it. I'd have to get someone to write a library for it. There's no library for any platform that I've seen. It's a discontinued chip, but it could potentially work. And so I was going through all that in my head. And then when I was thinking of, sorry, this is long-winded, when I was thinking of this whole sub thing, but, I said to Lockie, you could do in between. I thought, shit, why aren't I doing in between? I could do in between here. I started laying out an in between version of the hardware last night. The problem is, I couldn't do it in this size because there's not enough room to put your finger in between, right? And if I stuck an LED in between these spots, then there'd be no place for a touch recognition because there'd be no copper, because there's, right? So I'd have to extend it quite a lot. And even if I squeezed this up, and then, like I said, every second one was not an actual touch spot, I'd still be adding an extra 40% this way and 40% this way. And I'd have 500 and something LEDs on this thing, which is a lot of LEDs to pump through a small board that potentially running, the battery's not going to last very long, right? It's almost four times as many LEDs. So it just seems like a bad idea to do on this. But then I thought, originally I was going to, I had a larger version I started with before I went to the mini version. And the larger version was the same, it was 12 by 12 as well, it was just bigger, right? Much more space in between each finger, which was a problem because you could get your finger in between and you couldn't select anything, which was bad. But now in hindsight would have been perfect because I could have made the touch areas bigger and detected in between. So I thought about maybe doing the mini version. Well, this is the that's just Touch Me Mini, but it's RGB Touch Mini. This is my original prototype. And then a normal version, but I don't particularly want to make two versions. Anyway, it also means that for my wall one, right now I'm using 4 of those chips. I could actually just use 2 and do the sub touch as well. But I've already designed all the hardware to use 4, so I might just keep it at 4. Whatever, I'm waffling. The point is, I've been working on some demos. I still don't think there's anything compelling on this. I should just make them and release them and whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I have already changed the design of my OMG S3. I've moved 2 important pins. It's not that there was a problem with the way this worked now, right? So I made this the USB breakout for it. So that's plugged into USB, and that's literally soldered. The 2 boards are soldered together. So the USB board has pads top and bottom, and so you can take the top ones. I just soldered them to the board, right? But that's like a permanent connection. The problem with doing that is I realized after I did it that I don't have IO0 or reset, or I've got them on pads at the back, but there's no easy way for someone to reset, and so I wanted to add them to the PCB board, the USB board. So I've made a new version of the USB board that's longer, and that also accepts pogos, so you could either solder or put wires or pogos. And I put the 2 buttons on, and then I realized I don't break out IO0 on the header here. I break out the 3.3 volt enable pin, and IO0 is all the way back. So I've swapped those around. It took a redesign. So of course I swapped that around, but I've already ordered my adapter boards for my test jig for this version. So now I'm getting 2 versions of my adapter boards, because I've already fixed that now, because the side pins here aren't exposed on the adapter board for testing because they're already connected. They're hard connected to the USB, right? So, and to the buttons. So anyway, it's complicated. I've redesigned this board. I've redesigned the USB board, made it a bigger one. I've redesigned the adapter board, and I still need to design a carrier, like a reference board, carrier like I did for the Nano S3. And what I'm also going to do is redesign the adapter board to be also a reference board for people that want a pogo board. The problem is finding pogos that are to my specification is a bit of a hassle. The pads on the back are not 1.27 millimeter like they are on the Nano, because they're too dense. You can't even see them. Like they're too dense. So I want them hand solderable if people want to solder wires to them. So the idea is I made them bigger. But they're not 2 millimeters either. They're 1.4 millimeter pitch, which is an odd thing. The issue with the 1.4 millimeter pitch is that they don't make pogos 1.27, or they kind of do. Not the type of pogos I want. I can get surface mount only pogos that'll fit this, but there's no strength to them, and when you're soldering them on, you can't guarantee to get them straight. So I want ones that have the little pins on the bottom that go into a plated hole, like these ones have got, right? So these pogos here, they've got little pins on the bottom that go through at the back. That keeps them straight, aligned, and gives it more mechanical strength. But I can't seem to find ones that fit this 1.4 by 1.4 spacing that doesn't have a 4mm pin. I don't want a 4mm pin. It's fine for these because I've got enough headroom, but to put them into a USB or into another board, I don't want 4mm of pin sticking out the bottom. So I'm looking for one that's only got 1mm of pin. I might have to get some custom ones made. So it's a bit of a spanner in the works there. But anyway, I don't even know why I'm releasing this board. I think I'm, it's just another S3 board in my list, another board to support, another board to have to keep in stock and whatever. My Nanos don't sell enough really that it justifies, giving people more indecision about which board to go for. This is no harder to put on a surface mount, like to surface mount onto a carrier board than the Nano is. The Nano's a bit smaller. Sorry, this is a bit smaller. The Nano has more I/O. I haven't even designed a version of this that's got a UFL connector on it. I don't know if I will or if I won't. I'd be surprised if I sell many or any of these. I don't even know why I'm doing it, but it is a tiny little board. I mean, look at my finger. If I put it next to my finger, where's my little finger? Like, it's smaller than my little finger, and I've got, little hands. It's a tiny little board. Anyway, yeah. So I almost gave up on my robot after the stream, but I actually worked out what the problem was. That for those who caught my stream, I got to a point where I couldn't control, I couldn't get one of these to turn. So it turns out the firmware that was on the board, the settings on the board were corrupted. I had to go through every single setting on the MKS board, the closed loop controller board, because there were some of them that had, they'll show you, here's a list of the settings for, what ID it is, right? And, ID 1 up to ID 6, and there'll be an asterisk next to it, which one's selected. So some of the settings on there was an asterisk next to an empty slot, and it wasn't actually, it was corrupted. And one of those was how much milliamps can it use? And you can choose anywhere from 100 milliamps, which obviously can't turn anything, up to 3.2. Actually, these ones can go, no, these can do, the 3.2 amps, which obviously you can't do on these NEMA 17s, but none of it was selected. And so basically it was getting 0 milliamps when it was being told to turn. And so I worked out how to change that via the CAN interface. And so I programmed that into my send thing, and I've managed to set them all now to be the correct things. Turns out two of them, both of these, were set wrong. The one that was turning on the stream, but looked really noisy and whatever, was set to like 800 milliamps, and should have been set to 1.6 amps, and the other one was set to no milliamps. I've got them both set to 1.6 now, and they both work, and I redesigned a whole bunch of parts and rebuilt these whole things now that these don't wobble anymore like they did before, which is really good. These used to wobble when they turned, and they don't now. So these actually spin really well. And so I've rebuilt those, I've rewired everything, and I've also, although I'm reprinting it right now because I broke this one this morning as I was cleaning it, I redesigned this bit that goes on the front, which connects to these side attachments that are holding the stepper in place, all of this, right? And redesigned these side things as well. So now, when they're together, which way does that go? So when they're together like this now, there's one there and one on the other side, I've added like an extra like 12 millimeters of room inside so all the wires don't get squished into each other. So like every time I was assembling it, I was ripping wires out because they're all getting contorted the wrong way. And I've confirmed that they all fit together now with my new design, but unfortunately, as you might see here, I cracked this in half when I was cleaning it. I couldn't get the support out, and I broke it there and on the other side. So it doesn't have a lot of strength now. So it's reprinting at the moment with a different support system. So I think I will have everything going again where I'll have no gripper, but the rest of it working finally on the robot. Like what a disaster project, really. Also, I did a bit of a little rant on the Discord about it, about just the amount of space that there is in there, and how. So when I started this, the design, like closed loop, hadn't really been like I was probably the second person working on a closed loop version. I only know of one person that actually finished building a closed loop version, and the whole design was for the open loop version, which had completely different wiring, didn't have all this wiring requirement inside small spaces. So I had a bit of a rant about the amount of space and the fact that the closed loop stuff was thrown into the existing design. The design wasn't changed enough to adapt for it, and that maybe we should fork off the robot and have a closed loop version and an open loop version so we can get rid of all the bits. There's a stack of features on this that are for the open loop that aren't needed, that make printing the parts a problem because you've got all these supports going into all these different nooks and crannies that shouldn't even be there. And then the closed loop version doesn't have enough space, so let's just separate them out. Anyway, Arcturus turned around, he came back and explained why it is the way it is. The original design for closed loop had the MKS things they weren't on the steppers. They were on the sides. So there's all these encoder spots everywhere on the external. So there's a magnet and a thing for an encoder. And he set the whole thing up to do the reading of the encoding and the closed loop off the joint position, not off the stepper position, which would have been awesome because then it would have been doing all the closed loop compensation on the joint, not on the anyway. But then after we got it all together and it wasn't kind of working properly, he contacted the MKS guys. The MKS guys said, no, you can't do that because their firmware is hard coded to only accept the 0.8 or the 0.9 or the 1.8 degree step rotation of the stepper, and it can't be set to anything else. Like everything about the whole firmware is locked in on that, which means we can't read 0.9 or 1.8 steps on the joint. We don't want to do that, right? It's not a rotation anyway. So it turns out he couldn't do that, and so originally all the wiring for the closed loop was on the outside, and it was all on these encoder sections everywhere. There's one there, there's one here. Every single piece had, and that way the encoder worked for closed or open loop, right? For the open loop, it could just read the position, and for the closed loop, it could control the position. So that's why it then had to all get put inside. By that point, the robot was designed, and he couldn't change the design because people were building it. They couldn't drastically change it. Anyway, that was a long-winded thing of, I think I might have solved it all. It was a lot of printing, a lot of tweaking the design. I'm really over the robot. I really, really am. But I'd like to get it finished just to say I got it finished. But it's chewed up so much of my time. So much of my time. Okay, I think that's it for an update. Yeah. We won't go into the state of the business at the moment because there isn't one. Yep. So I'm just ignoring that because really not much else I can do except for ignore it. And just forge ahead and get some new products out. I should have my prototype boards for my storage shield, the one with the eMMC. They should be here maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. Probably not in time for my stream, but I don't know if I want to build one on stream with the eMMC. I don't know. And I've had no feedback from anyone about my 3.0, or one person only who's not actually using it yet because he hasn't got his oven set up yet, about my Reflow Master Pro version 3 firmware. So all that kind of mad rush to get it all to beta 1 to get it out to people to play with, no feedback, nothing. No even acknowledgement of people using it. I don't know, like I just... So, yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment. Okay. That's it. I'm just going to... Yeah, I'm waiting for some paste to warm up at the moment. I need to build some blings. I don't have any in stock. Haven't had for a while. But other than that, yeah, don't know what I'm going to do today other than try to stay warm. Thanks all for being a supporter and a patron. I really appreciate it. I hope this video doesn't look crap. It's too late once I've recorded it. I'm not recording it again. If you've got any ideas of things I can do with this, let me know. I want to do a touch and let go and dum, 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 bouncing around ball thing would be funny. Not ball, just bouncing pixels, but based on you flinging them or something. I don't know. I did get swiping. I showed, yeah, I put that in the video as well. I've got swiping working, like gestures, like you can detect swipe left, swipe right, whatever, up, down. But if you've got any ideas, and I did also mention in my one of my last videos on Discord that if anyone wants one to work on some demo firmware, hit me up, let me know. But it's got to be demo firmware, not like I'm not looking for things that are, you know, displaying the weather on here, like type thing. I'm looking for things that showcase what this can do that's different to just using something with a little OLED, right? Or using a, you know what I mean? Like it's got sound, it's got touch, it's got interactivity, right? So I'm you know, interested in like if you've got an idea for something that can showcase the interactivity of it, that sets it apart, let me know what your idea is and I'll send you one to work on the firmware. Yeah? But I've only got like 3 that I can send, like including this one maybe. So I've only got a couple, so it's got to be to people who have a cool idea that can, you know, come up with something that's really, yeah, that kind of showcases this, because I'm struggling, like I'm with my time and just with my creativity, I guess, or whatever. You know, I've got a framework that can get you started, that handles all the touch and the displaying and stuff. So let me know if you've got an idea or something. Yeah. Okay, I'm going. Thank you. Have a great week, everyone. Maybe see some of you on my stream. If not, I will catch you all later. Bye.